Trade is a fundamental driver of economic growth and development. It connects countries, businesses, and people, allowing goods and services to flow across borders. But beyond the numbers and profits, trade has a profound impact on labor conditions. In this video, we'll explore how trade influences the lives of workers, the quality of their jobs, and the standards they experience. We'll start by understanding what trade means in a global context and why it matters for labor. As we move forward, we'll see how trade shapes opportunities, challenges, and the everyday realities of workers worldwide. Globalization is the process by which trade and investment link economies together. It has accelerated over the past decades, making it easier for companies to source materials and labor from different parts of the world. This interconnectedness means that decisions made in one country can affect workers in another. For example, a company relocating its factory to a country with lower labor costs can create jobs there, but may also lead to job losses elsewhere. Understanding globalization helps us see the bigger picture of how trade impacts labor conditions. Trade can cause shifts in labor markets, changing the demand for certain skills and types of work. When countries open up to trade, industries that are competitive may grow while others may shrink. This means workers may need to adapt, retrain, or even relocate to find new opportunities. The impact of these shifts can be positive, offering better jobs and higher wages, or negative, leading to unemployment and uncertainty. The way trade shapes labor markets is complex and depends on many factors, including government policies and the ability of workers to adjust. Trade can create new jobs in industries that benefit from access to global markets. For example, export-oriented sectors often see growth and increased hiring. However, trade can also lead to job losses in industries that struggle to compete with imports. The net effect depends on how well economies and workers can adapt to these changes. Governments often play a role in supporting workers through retraining programs and social safety nets, helping them transition to new opportunity. Trade can influence wages and income levels for workers. In some cases, increased demand for skilled labor can lead to higher wages, especially in industries that export goods or services. On the other hand, workers in sectors facing tough competition from imports may see their wages stagnate or decline. The overall impact on income depends on the balance between job creation and job loss, as well as the types of jobs that are available. Trade can widen income gaps if benefits are not evenly distributed. Trade can impact the quality of working conditions. In some countries, increased trade brings investment and higher standards, improving workplace safety and benefits. However, in others, competition may lead to cost-cutting, resulting in poor conditions, long hours, or even unsafe environments. The influence of trade on working conditions depends on regulations, enforcement, and the willingness of companies to invest in their workforce. International agreements and labor standards can help ensure that trade leads to better conditions for workers. Labor standards are rules and regulations that protect workers' rights and ensure fair treatment. Trade agreements often include provisions for labor standards, aiming to prevent exploitation and promote decent work. These standards cover issues like minimum wages, working hours, and workplace safety. When countries trade with each other, they may agree to uphold certain labor standards, which can help improve conditions for workers. However, enforcement is key, and not all countries follow through on their commitments. International organizations like the International Labor Organization, ILO, play a crucial role in setting global labor standards. They work with governments, businesses, and unions to promote fair and safe working conditions. These organizations monitor compliance, provide guidance, and help resolve disputes. Their efforts ensure that trade does not come at the expense of workers' rights. By setting benchmarks and encouraging cooperation, international organizations help shape the impact of trade on labor conditions. Companies that participate in global trade have a responsibility to uphold labor standards and ensure fair treatment of workers. Corporate social responsibility (CSR) initiatives encourage businesses to go beyond legal requirements, investing in safe workplaces, fair wages, and opportunities for growth. By adopting ethical practices, companies can improve labor conditions and build trust with employees and consumers. Responsible business practices are increasingly important in a world where consumers care about how products are made. Trade creates complex supply chains that span multiple countries and industries. Each link in the chain can affect labor conditions, from raw materials to finished products. Companies must monitor their suppliers to ensure compliance with labor standards. Transparency and accountability are key to preventing exploitation and improving working conditions. Supply chains also offer opportunities for collaboration, allowing businesses to share best practices and raise standards across the industry. Trade agreements are treaties between countries that set the rules for exchanging goods and services. Many modern agreements include labor provisions, requiring countries to uphold certain standards. These agreements can help protect workers from exploitation and ensure fair competition. However, the effectiveness of labor provisions depends on enforcement and political will. Trade agreements are a powerful tool for shaping labor conditions, but they must be backed by action. Trade can have a significant impact on labor conditions in developing countries. Increased access to global markets can create jobs and boost incomes, helping lift people out of poverty. However, weak regulations and enforcement can lead to exploitation, unsafe conditions, and low wages. The challenge is to ensure that trade benefits workers and promotes sustainable development. International cooperation and investment in education and training are essential for improving labor conditions in developing countries. Developed countries, trade can lead to job losses in industries facing competition from imports. Workers may need to retrain or shift to new sectors. However, trade also creates opportunities in high-tech and export-oriented industries. The impact on labor conditions depends on how well workers and economies adapt. Social safety nets, education, and innovation are key to ensuring that trade benefits workers in developed countries. Trade can affect men and women differently. In some cases, trade creates new opportunities for women, especially in export industries. However, women may also face challenges such as lower wages, limited access to training, and discrimination. Promoting gender equality in trade policies and labor standards is essential for ensuring that all workers benefit. Empowering women through education and fair treatment can improve labor conditions and drive economic growth. Trade can sometimes lead to increased demand for cheap labor, raising concerns about child labor. International agreements and regulations aim to prevent child labor and protect young workers. Companies and governments must work together to enforce these standards and ensure that trade does not contribute to exploitation. Education and awareness are key to eliminating child labor and improving conditions for all workers. Forced labor is a serious concern in global supply chains. Trade can sometimes create incentives for exploitation, especially in countries with weak regulations. International organizations and governments are working to eliminate forced labor by monitoring supply chains and enforcing strict standards. Transparency and accountability are essential for preventing forced labor and ensuring fair treatment for all workers. Trade can influence migration patterns as workers move to areas with better job opportunities. Migration can help fill labor shortages and boost economic growth, but it can also create challenges, such as integration and protection of migrant workers. Ensuring fair treatment and equal opportunities for migrants is essential for improving labor conditions and maximizing the benefits of trade. Trade often goes hand in hand with technological innovation. New technologies can create jobs, improve productivity, and raise standards. However, automation and digitalization can also lead to job losses and require workers to learn new skills. The impact of technology on labor conditions depends on how well workers adapt and how companies invest in training and development. Trade can affect environmental standards, which in turn impact labor conditions. Sustainable trade practices help protect workers from hazardous environments and promote health and safety. Companies and governments must balance economic growth with environmental protection, ensuring that trade does not harm workers or communities. Green jobs and sustainable industries offer new opportunities for workers. Trade can influence health and safety standards in the workplace. International competition may encourage companies to invest in safer environments, but it can also lead to cost-cutting and risks. Regulations and enforcement are crucial for protecting workers' health and safety. Promoting high standards ensures that trade benefits workers and reduces accidents and illnesses. Social dialogue involves discussions between workers, employers, and governments about labor conditions. Trade can encourage social dialogue by creating new opportunities and challenges. Effective dialogue helps resolve disputes, improve standards, and ensure fair treatment. Unions and worker organizations play a key role in representing employees and advocating for better conditions. Unions are organizations that represent workers and negotiate for better wages, conditions, and rights. Trade can strengthen unions by creating new jobs and opportunities, but it can also challenge them if industries decline. Unions play a vital role in ensuring that trade benefits workers and that their voices are heard. Strong unions help improve labor conditions and promote fair treatment. Government policies play a crucial role in shaping the impact of trade on labor conditions. Policies can support workers through education, training, and social safety nets. Governments also set regulations and enforce labor standards, ensuring that trade does not lead to exploitation. Effective policies help workers adapt to changes and maximize the benefits of trade. Education and training are essential for helping workers adapt to changes brought by trade. New technologies and industries require new skills, and workers must be prepared to meet these demands. Investment in education and training improves labor conditions, increases productivity, and creates opportunities for growth. Governments, businesses, and workers must collaborate to ensure access to quality education and training. Social safety nets provide support for workers affected by trade-related changes. Unemployment benefits, healthcare, and retraining programs help workers transition to new jobs and industries. Strong safety nets improve labor conditions and reduce the risks associated with trade. Governments must ensure that workers have access to support and protection. Trade encourages innovation and growth, creating new industries and opportunities for workers. Innovative companies invest in research and development, leading to better products and higher standards. Workers benefit from new jobs, improved conditions, and opportunities for advancement. Trade-driven innovation is a key driver of economic progress and improved labor conditions. Trade can create challenges for workers, including job losses, wage stagnation, and uncertainty. Adapting to new industries and technologies requires resilience and support. Governments, businesses, and unions must work together to address these challenges and ensure fair treatment. By recognizing and addressing challenges, we can improve labor conditions and maximize the benefits of trade. Trade also creates opportunities for workers, including access to new markets, higher wages, and better conditions. Workers can benefit from increased demand for skills in new industries. Education, training, and innovation help workers seize these opportunities and improve their lives. By focusing on opportunities, we can ensure that trade leads to positive outcomes for workers. Fair trade movement promotes ethical practices in global trade, ensuring that workers receive fair wages and safe conditions. Fair trade certification helps consumers identify products made under ethical standards. Companies that participate in fair trade improve labor conditions and build trust with consumers. The movement encourages responsible business practices and supports sustainable development. Consumers play a powerful role in shaping labor conditions through their purchasing decisions. By choosing products made under fair labor standards, consumers encourage companies to adopt ethical practices. Awareness and advocacy help drive change and improve conditions for workers. Consumer influence is a key factor in promoting responsible trade and better labor standards. Transparency is essential for ensuring fair labor conditions in global trade. Companies must disclose information about their supply chains and labor practices. Transparency helps prevent exploitation, improve standards, and build trust with consumers and workers. Governments and organizations encourage transparency through regulations and reporting requirements. Accountability ensures that companies and governments uphold labor standards and fair practices. Monitoring, reporting, and enforcement are key to holding actors accountable. Accountability improves labor conditions, prevents exploitation, and promotes responsible trade. Consumers, organizations, and governments all play a role in ensuring accountability. Textile industry is a prime example of how trade impacts labor conditions. Global demand for textiles creates jobs in many countries, but it also raises concerns about wages, safety, and exploitation. Companies must monitor supply chains and invest in fair practices to improve conditions. The textile industry shows the importance of transparency, accountability, and ethical standards in global trade. Electronics industry relies on global supply chains and trade. Workers in electronics manufacturing face challenges such as long hours, low wages, and safety risks. Companies must ensure compliance with labor standards and invest in safe workplaces. The electronics industry highlights the need for responsible business practices and international cooperation. Agriculture is another sector deeply affected by trade. Global demand for agricultural products creates jobs, but workers often face low wages, unsafe conditions, and exploitation. Fair trade initiatives and international standards help improve conditions and ensure fair treatment. Agriculture shows the importance of ethical practices and support for workers. Services sector, including finance, education, and healthcare, is increasingly affected by trade. Trade creates new opportunities for skilled workers and raises standards. However, workers may face challenges such as job insecurity and changing demands. Investment in training and support helps workers adapt and benefit from trade in the services sector. Manufacturing is a key sector impacted by trade. Access to global markets creates jobs and opportunities, but competition can lead to job losses and wage pressures. Companies must invest in innovation and fair practices to improve labor conditions. Manufacturing highlights the need for adaptation and responsible business practices. Mining is a sector where trade can have significant impacts on labor conditions. Workers often face hazardous environments and safety risks. International standards and regulations help protect workers and improve conditions. Mining shows the importance of enforcement and investment in safety. Logistics and transportation are essential for global trade. Workers in logistics face challenges such as long hours, job insecurity, and safety risks. Companies must invest in fair practices and support workers to improve conditions. Logistics highlights the importance of responsible business practices and collaboration. Tourism is a sector where trade creates jobs and opportunities. Workers benefit from increased demand but may face challenges such as seasonal employment and low wages. Investment in training and fair practices helps improve conditions. Tourism shows the importance of supporting workers and promoting ethical standards. Healthcare is increasingly affected by trade, with workers facing new opportunities and challenges. Trade creates demand for skilled professionals and raises standards, but may also lead to job insecurity and changing requirements. Investment in education and support helps workers adapt and benefit from trade in healthcare. Finance is a sector where trade creates new opportunities for workers. Global markets drive demand for skilled professionals and raise standards. However, workers may face challenges such as job insecurity and changing demands. Investment in training and support helps workers adapt and benefit from trade and finance. Education is a sector where trade creates new opportunities and challenges for workers. Global demand for education services raises standards and creates jobs, but workers may face changing requirements and job insecurity. Investment in training and support helps workers adapt and benefit from trade and education. Retail is a sector where trade creates jobs and opportunities for workers. Global supply chains and demand drive growth, but workers may face challenges such as low wages and job insecurity. Investment in fair practices and support helps improve conditions. Retail highlights the importance of ethical standards and responsible business practices. Trade has a profound impact on labor conditions, shaping opportunities, challenges, and standards for workers worldwide. By understanding the effects of trade, we can promote fair treatment, improve conditions, and maximize benefits for all. Collaboration between governments, businesses, unions, and consumers is essential for ensuring responsible trade and better labor standards. As global trade continues to evolve, ongoing efforts to support workers and uphold ethical practices will be crucial for a brighter future.